Hello, I'm Katie Mahalic, and today we're talking with Michelle Fiordaliso about her new book, Rejected: Essays on Belonging. Hi, Michelle. Thank you for being here with me today.
Hi, how are you? So happy to be here.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you I always feel like it's my basic question out the gate. Have you always wanted to become a writer?
I did always want to become a writer. My favorite place in the world was the library when I was a child, or a bookstore. And I used to secretly wish that I could be locked in the library overnight. And I just loved the smell of books. And um, so yes, on some level, I always wanted to be a writer.
So you're very well published. Can you tell us a little bit about where some of our listeners may have seen your essays?
The thing that makes me happiest is that I was published 2 times in the Modern Love column in the New York Times. I fell in love with the column from the very first column, which was published in October of 2004. And I just wanted to be published there. And I submitted pieces and got rejected. And then finally in 2012, I had submitted a piece and it was accepted. And it published on Mother's Day, which also meant a lot to me because I'm a single mother, and that day sometimes goes overlooked. And it felt like I got global recognition for my motherhood journey. And then I had another one published in 2016. They published it, I got a rejection, and then 18 months later, they wanted to publish it. So sometimes a no is a not now.
I mean, you're being modest, but you're one of the few in the world that have ever been published in the column twice, correct?
That's true. I don't know the exact number, so I don't want to quote it, but it's a handful. I mean, my guess is it's somewhere under 10 or under 20. I also have had essays in the Los Angeles Times, the Chicago Tribune, the Washington Post, Ms. Magazine, Self, you know.
So what was the inspiration for Rejected: Essays on Belonging?
The inspiration for this book was just that it sort of became comical that, I'm pretty prolific as a writer, and I often get moved by things that are happening in the world or in my life, and I will feel compelled to work it out on paper. And so sometimes it'll wake me up in the middle of the night, or something will demand to be written. All of the essays that are in this book had been rejected from various places. But they were essays that friends had read and colleagues had read, and people would say, could you send me that essay that you wrote about the cold water swim? Or could you send me that essay you wrote about ayahuasca? I have a friend who wants to know more about that. And I just thought, like, it didn't feel very respectable to my work to just send PDFs to strangers, and enough people were asking for them, and I was like, I'm gonna put them all in here together, and then when someone wants to read them, they can go get it or download it or whatever.
Is this how you came up with the title? What is the meaning behind the title, Rejected: Essays on Belonging?
Well, I think that, I mean, the essays all have been rejected, so it's basically about that. Um, and but I think rejection is something that we really suffer through in human life, whether it's, getting rejected from a college we want to go to, getting rejected from a relationship, a job opportunity, a part, it's just a common theme that we have to deal with. And my first profession is that I'm a clinical social worker and psychotherapist. And so I've worked for years as a therapist and a coach. And the most common thing that people struggle with, whether they are a janitor or whether they're the head or CEO of like a really successful public company, is imposter syndrome. And for me, the inverse of feeling like an imposter is feeling a sense of belonging, feeling like you belong to this earth, or that you belong in your family, or you belong to your country, or to another person. And so it sort of speaks to rejected and belonging, for me, speaks to these polarities that we struggle with as human beings, wanting to feel like we belong somewhere, and sometimes suffering through feeling rejected in one way or another.
Can you tell me a little more, speak to a little more about a few other common themes that might appeal to listeners?
I think a lot of the common themes are about accepting ourselves, learning to love ourselves, and accepting each other. Looking at the places where we feel afraid or stuck in our life or unsure, and how to overcome that, how to triumph over really hard transitions,
Mm.
and things that we think we're just never going to make sense of, or that we're never going to survive or manage or endure or come through.
And because so many of these essays are written from personal experience, um, this makes me wonder, do you ever look back on one that you've written and, it's almost like looking at an old photograph, right? Like that's me, but that's not me anymore. Do you have that experience ever with past work that you've published or written?
All the time. I mean, because an essay is often a way for me to figure out what I'm feeling and to make sense of it, and sort of to see it through to some sort of completion. Once it's written, I'm often done. I'm done with the big feeling of it. I've processed it, I've digested it, I've extracted something that I want to take forward with me. And it's no longer relevant in a way. And so I almost started to doubt, as the book was getting ready to be published, like, are these going to matter to anyone? Because I feel kind of done with those lessons. And so I gave it to a handful of readers, and I was very relieved that they continued to resonate with the themes. And just because I have processed something doesn't mean that there isn't meaning and relevance for someone else. And also, I think that is one of the main reasons why I write, because, for example, some of the essays in the book, like, not everybody wants to go in the ocean in the winter time and figure out what that makes them discover about themselves, or not everybody wants to do an ayahuasca journey, or will never move cross country as a single parent with a 5-year-old, or be on the front line of 9/11 and one of the first responders. And they don't need to be. They can read somebody else's account, they can feel, they can learn, they can, like the word compassion is to feel with, they can feel with me and not have to endure the bone chilling water.
It makes me think of some of the other personal experiences in the essays. Out of all of them, which do you feel like is your favorite?
Well, I think for me, I don't know, there's a lot that I like for different reasons, but one that I am particularly passionate about is, there's a story about something that happened to me with bees. And I just love the natural world. I get so much meaning and fulfillment from being in nature and from animals. And so this story about bees, it's just how these bees sort of saw me through one of the hardest transitions in my life. And not everyone will ever have that kind of experience with the natural world. And so I wanted to share it for someone who will not be followed by a migration of bees.
That's amazing. You also talk a lot about motherhood and compassion and self-care. And it made me really wonder, has being a mother really shaped your writing?
I think being a mother has shaped my everything. I mean, it is, I am just so grateful that I had the experience of being a mother. My experience of motherhood was not an easy one. I parented alone. I got pregnant very young. I had a stroke when I was 9 months pregnant. So my my motherhood journey had many challenges, but and I am somebody who likes to be good at things. I mean, I graduated college with a 3.96 GPA. I I'm perfectionistic, I'm type A, and parenthood is not something you can be perfect at. It's a spiritual practice. It is humbling every day. One has to be willing to admit their inadequacies and try again and try again. And every day with a child, there's an opportunity to be more patient, more present, more connected, more humble, more open, less fearful, to find ways to not impose your own will on this other person. And the same thing happens with stories. It's like the story doesn't belong to you once it's written. The child doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the world in some way, which is also why I kind of put it into a book, because these stories and these lived experiences are for other people to experience and grow from and feel from. And yeah, so I would say that being a mother has very much shaped my writing journey, in addition to just giving me so much more access to feelings. I mean, I started off in life with like having like a 3-pack of crayons like that they give you at an Applebee's or something. And then, I mean, keep these crayons on my desk. And then it's like, you become a mother, and then it's like you got the 64, pack of Crayolas where, you've got rage in there, and fear and primal terror, and and the joy crayon, and in 17 different varieties of color, and your life just expands in terms of just all the different nuances of what you can feel and think and let go of and hold on to and all of that.
Your essays have so many lived experiences, friends and family. And I wanted to know, do you ever have people that are concerned about how they're portrayed? Has anyone ever complained? What has that experience been like for you?
Yes. I mean, I do warn people that I tend to write about friends and family members. Everybody that's mentioned in the book, I asked their permission before writing about them, and most said yes. A couple wanted names changed. The only person who I really feel very protective of is my son. And I mean, I have written about him quite frequently, especially because I didn't parent him with a partner. So there were things that I was trying to work out and make sense of. And for example, I mean, I always thought when I aspired to be published in Modern Love that my piece would be about romantic love. And both of my essays are about my relationship with my son. And I always ask him to read something before submitting it. And I always ask about whether he's comfortable with it and how he feels about it. And he's like a big supporter. So I've been really lucky in that way. And then he's super sweet. Like he'll be like pulling up essays that I've written, like, and sharing them with strangers. And then they're like crying at the gym, and, I mean, it's very cute, but.
That's amazing. Okay. So what do you want people to take away from your essays?
I think most of all, I want people to take away greater access to their own humanity and their own capacity to feel, to risk, to love themselves and other people, to be vulnerable, to be authentic.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you so much, Katie. It's been so nice to be here with you.
For me too. And to everyone else, look for Michelle Fiordaliso's new book, Rejected: Essays on Belonging, at henrygraypublishing.com, or ask for it at your favorite neighborhood bookstore. Until next time, happy reading, everyone.